want to?
The Josiah, I got you.
Go for it.
Welcome back to the Second and Short podcast where the entire playbook is open. My name is Jacob.
And I'm Hayden.
As you can tell, I'm not Josiah, but I am better looking, so you guys are blessed today. We're going to be getting into some awards today for this podcast, this little mini show with just Hayden and I. And we're going to just kind of recap our 2024 NFL awards, who we think might win the awards, who we want to win the awards, some of our favorites for the year, and just kind of go over some of that stuff.
Naples, that was beautiful. Josie might have just lost his job.
I mean,
Josie might be on the outs. He might be joining the unemployment line because that was just spectacular. You hit on it. Really simple episode. We're going to have tons of time to talk about the Super Bowl. We're going to wait to do that until next week. Instead, though, this week of award season, yes, I know we're trying to get some brand sponsors. C4, what kind of flavor we got there?
Yeah, so we've got the C4, the Strawberry Blast. Shout out to Bruce Angelotti. Actually put me onto this one. You can actually get a 12-pack from Wegmans. Absolute gas flavor.
Love it. And then I have the Sour Head Bang. Pretty good.
Yeah.
And Naples, what did you say earlier? Combining our two energy drinks?
Yeah, C4 goes bang.
Love it. C4 and Bang, let's get into it. Naples, you want to start off with MVP just because it is the most prestigious award.
Yeah.
And really, it comes down to two guys. I have an argument that the top four guys in my MVP rankings would all have been MVP last season. I think this season's Lamar Jackson exceeds last year, or this year's Lamar exceeds last year's Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley. We know, I don't know if you're still arguing it, but Lamar Jackson will be winning his third MVP. The first team All-Pro list already came out, so we know it.
It's happened before where the first team All-Pro does not get that MVP.
When was the last time that happened?
I don't remember. Sometime in the 1900s, but hey, if there's ever a year for it to be done again, I think this year's the year.
Well, the guy who you think is going to win it is also the guy who I think both of us believe deserves to win it, and that's Josh Allen. With that said, I feel like the MVP narrative this year has been very one guy against another. But as I said in the opening, I think that all four of these guys have had MVP caliber seasons.
Yeah.
I do think that the first team All-Pro voting will be telling that Lamar will be winning his third MVP and his second straight, which puts him in just rare company where we probably already have three guys from his generation into the Hall of Fame. Mahomes, obviously. Allen's peak has been just as good as Mahomes' peak, you could argue. And then Lamar Jackson, 3 MVPs. I don't think that there's a player with 3 MVPs not in Canton.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar, I think if he retired today, is a Hall of Famer. You touched on it, Mahomes, obvious, lock first. He could not do anything else the rest of his career, and he already has a better resume than a lot of the great quarterbacks. Now, Josh Allen, he's a guy that needs to get some hardware. He needs to get some hardware because if he doesn't start getting any type of conference, even just appearances in the Super Bowl, he is going to have a really hard time. Even if he has plays another 10 years and puts up these good numbers, all he did was never win the big one. Never get it done. So, I mean, that's not a Hall of Famer.
No, you're right, because right now there's 2 second-team All-Pros and 3 Pro Bowls. Russell Wilson, I get it, doesn't deserve a Pro Bowl nod this year, but with Bo Nix and C.J. Stroud declining, Russell Wilson was just named to his 10th Pro Bowl. Yeah. 2 second-team All-Pro. He's right now, Josh Allen isn't a Hall of Famer, which is crazy to me because I don't think there's ever been a time, maybe other than the very beginning, where I was like, I would rather have Lamar Jackson than Josh Allen. But right now, Lamar Jackson's individual accolades just are way superior to Josh's.
They definitely are.
All right, so MVP done. This one might end up being a quicker.
Yeah. I mean, let's not forget about our boy Saquon. Definite MVP worthy season. I think when you talk about an MVP, how valuable you are to your team. So that isn't always did you have the best season among other people, in terms of quarterback to running back or receiver to running back or whatever it might be. But Saquon is the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, there is no way around that. Like, without him, they are not the same team. I think they're still really good, but they are not the same team. And that's also why I think Josh Allen at least in my eyes, should be the MVP. Because when you look at the Ravens, yes, Lamar Jackson's the Ravens, but so is Derrick Henry this year. Like, this year specifically.
Derrick Henry arguably has had an MVP caliber season,
yeah, exactly.
Too.
So, like, when you have a guy like that, like, is Derrick Henry more valuable than Lamar this year for the Ravens? You could at least make some sort of a case. You can't make a case for any other person on the Bills. Like, Josh Allen they got blown out by the Ravens. But they had signature wins against the Rams and the Lions, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they beat both of those teams who were both playoff teams. Both
the Rams actually did beat them.
Oh, no, the Rams ended up beating them?
Yeah.
But, like, they had signature wins, like, putting up big numbers on the back of Josh Allen, who arguably had one of the worst set of weapons around him, like, this year. Obviously not the worst, but comparatively to all the other playoff teams, probably the worst set of weapons to work with.
Yeah, I think the Ravens had the league lead in Pro Bowlers. I do have an interesting note and question that I want to pose to you about Saquon. There was some pushback because fantasy owners, myself included, were distraught when Jalen Hurts just continuously racked up the tush push, the brotherly shove touchdowns. He finished with 14. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that double digit of those were from the tush push. And they were saying, this is hurting Saquon's MVP case. And the counter argument to that was 1 yard touchdowns should not affect your MVP case. But I think it would have, because if you give Saquon another, let's say, 8 to 10 touchdowns, I think that does make the 2,000-yard season look even better. I mean, I get it. You shouldn't just be solely looking at stats, but I think it really does help the Saquon argument when not only is he among the all-time leaders in rush yards in a season, but also rush touchdowns in a season.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that the tush-push play in general takes away from some of the Saquon, because, like, that still gets the headlines in the media from a lot of the Eagle talk is, they're doing the tush-push. They're 1st and 9 every drive, like. Yeah, people talk about Saquon, but, like, that does steal some of that away, rather than, like, if they didn't do that play and Saquon scored 10 more touchdowns this year, and let's say he broke the record, like, he's no doubt going to be the MVP after that.
Where do you fall on Jalen Hurts? I know you and I were kind of doing a little bit of Super Bowl preview off air. I like him. I don't dislike him, but I think that he's just a solid top 20 quarterback who benefits from having insane weapons in a top 2 offensive line. I'm looking right now. He did miss the end of the regular season. We had the Kenny Pickett, Tanner McKee games going, but he failed to reach 3,000 yards. He finished with 18 touchdowns to 5 picks, so he wasn't throwing interceptions. He did have a high passer rating, but he only had 4 more pass touchdowns than rush touchdowns. And part of that is just because he is such an efficient runner, but also the passing, like, I don't know. I think that there are a lot of people who could do what Jalen Hurts does for this Eagles offense.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to veer just a little bit off that track, and here's why. I think Jalen Hurts is an easy top 10 guy for me.
Top 10?
Yeah, top 10 guy. I do like Jalen Hurts a lot. He has done something this year very similar to, like, what Mahomes has done this year. In retrospect, in terms of, like, he's doing what the team is asking him to rather than trying to be the superhero. Like, if you look at a lot of Mahomes' numbers, like, they're not 2018 Mahomes. Like, they're not, like, these huge numbers, but that's because they're always winning. They're getting wins. Like, they're doing what you need to do to win. And what has Jalen Hurts and the Eagles done? Done what they had to do to win. Also, if you take a look at game script, they're whacking teams. And, like, when you're playing with a lead and you have such an effective run game, your passing numbers aren't going to be good. You know why? Because you're going to keep running the ball. You got Saquon Barkley back there. You got Jalen Hurts running the ball. Like, those numbers aren't going to be as gaudy. And, like, yeah, I think another quarterback could have went into that offense with Kellen Moore there, and they could have lit it up on the scoreboard passing-wise. But that's not what they needed to do to win games. Like, what were they, 13, 14 wins? Yeah. Like, they didn't lose after the bye pretty much. That's doing what it takes to win, and I think, like, there's a lot of quarterbacks that aren't willing to do that in this league, and Jalen Hurts is someone who is willing to do that. He doesn't care about his numbers. He cares about team wins and doing what it takes to win. And when he has to make those big moment throws, he's for the most part made them. Like when he needs a third down pass, boom, connects to AJ Brown. Like he does show up in those big moments, and he's pretty clutch. Like even back to his time in Alabama and then Oklahoma, like all he does is win wherever he's at, and like that's a trait that like yeah, it's a team stat as wins, but like when wherever you're at, all you do is win. That kind of carries some sort of culture, and like that's a kind of an intangible, in my opinion, at least.
Dak Prescott or Jalen Hurts?
I'd probably take Jalen Hurts. I think he's better than Dak. Like I think Dak's fine. Like, but Dak doesn't do anything that like wows you. Like it's not like Dak's making throws like Matt Stafford does, or like Mahomes or Josh Allen or any of these other guys, right? Like he's just a good quarterback.
Okay, so do we agree then Stafford over Hurts?
Yeah, I'd take
Okay.
Stafford. Stafford, I think, obviously doesn't run the ball, but I think his ball placement and just like all the arm it, like Matthew Stafford throws one of the best balls in the league, and like you can't defend a perfect pass, and so like Matthew Stafford can slice you up like any given Sunday, and I don't think Jalen Hurts can do that.
Herbert?
I mean,
This one's one where I could see it going either way, just because I do think Jalen Hurts has more of a clutch gene.
yeah, I think Jalen Hurts right now, I think you have to put him ahead of Herbert, especially with like Herbert's playoff, like not success or lack thereof, and just like what Jalen Hurts has been able to do in his career versus Justin Herbert. Yes, Justin Herbert had a couple bad, coaching situations where they could have won a lot more games if they like had a kicker or knew how to coach. But like you can affect that as a quarterback, and I think like that shows like that leadership gap between the two, and I think that Jalen Hurts overall, like yeah, Herbert's probably a better
talented,
yeah, he's more talented. Like he's got a way bigger arm, like he can still run. Like Justin Herbert's like very athletic. Like he's not sneaky athletic. He can run, like he can move.
He's a specimen.
So yeah. But I think Jalen Hurts plays the position better for sure.
Just going rapid fire
Right,
because Mahomes.
Oh, obviously Mahomes, yeah.
Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar.
Yeah.
Burrow.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, Jaden's my 5.
Stafford.
Yep.
Stroud.
I really like Stroud. I think right now Jalen Hurts is probably they're in that same like tier. Like they're in that like 8 to like 12. And I'd also put Baker in there. After what Baker's done these last 2 seasons in Tampa,
You're putting Baker over Jalen?
Yeah, I might put Baker one spot. I might put Baker one spot above just because like what he's done, and he's never had any consistency. In the NFL,
he's had
having
8 coordinators,
8 different
now?
OCs like in every year that he's played. Like, dude had Freddie Kitchens. He had to go suffer in Carolina.
He had Todd Haley at
he got thrown into the back half of the Rams, like with injuries. He was thrown to Ben Skoranek. Like most people don't even know who that person is. He won a primetime game on 2 days coming in. Like what Baker's been able to do. Like if you have consistency in the league, you have success. Like look at all the quarterbacks and people that are having success. They've all had like the same people around them, whether that's the head coach or the OC or like weapons. Like they've had consistency. Baker's never had that anywhere he's been. Like it's always a new set of weapons or a new coach or a new OC or a new team or this, that, or the third, right? Like, all these other guys have that consistency and are able to like build upon their seasons. Like, yeah, every season is new, right? Start from scratch, but at least you're building upon like some of the stuff you did last year. Baker's just a fresh book every year, except for like these last 2 years in Tampa. Like he's had Todd Bowles both years. Evans, Godwin, they've been hurt,
but
like
new offenses. Dave Canales now coming.
2 different schemes, but like at least they built a little bit. And look, and you've seen like Baker was easily a top 10 guy this year with what he was able to do and like win the division. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. I'm not gonna say it was pretty. They got swept by Atlanta. There was some rough times for sure, but Baker played a heck of a year, and I love Baker. I might be a little biased on that.
One final QB comparison before we get back on script to the Offensive Player of the Year. Offensive Player of the Year, probably don't need to spend as much time just because typically the MVP candidates, the MVP runner-ups are going to be the Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Jared Goff or Jalen Hurts?
I mean, I take Jalen Hurts.
Alright.
I think Jared Goff is like, I think he's a good quarterback, but I also think he fits into that, like, it's the scheme. It's what they're doing, like, scheme wise. Like, he's throwing to wide open people. Like, it looks like a college offense. It's not. There's a lot of, and how many quarterbacks look good in college and can't play in the NFL? Look at Brock Purdy and the Niners. Brock Purdy, I think, is a good quarterback. I think he gets, he's underrated for what his talents actually are, but it's the scheme. When you're throwing to wide open guy, like, the scheme can help a good quarterback look like a great quarterback, but great quarterbacks thrive anywhere. And, like, I don't think that, and Jared Goff's been able to play in 2 great schemes, by the way, with, like, Sean McVay and then, going over with Ben Johnson. So, like, that can definitely shift and make you look a little better than you are. But, like, I think some of your weaknesses kind of get exposed, especially when you play, like, high-level teams. Like, I don't know.
Moving on to Offensive Player of the Year, I think it's going to be the guy we were talking about, Saquon Barkley. I will push back and say that my Offensive Player of the Year, and with some of these awards, they're not really descriptive. Like, is Offensive Player of the Year supposed to be a non-quarterback award? Is it supposed to be the same guy as the MVP? It's kind of weird. I remember Matt Ryan winning MVP and Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I don't like that.
There's just inconsistency. I will push back and say that my Offensive Player of the Year is Joe Burrow. Why? Because I think MVP is partially due to team success and individual success, but I think Offensive Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year, Rookies of the Year, all those are strictly
like season-based,
individual.
stat-based,
And I think Joe Burrow had the best individual season out of anybody in the National Football League this year. I think that his supporting cast just really let him down, not named Jamar Chase, who is another guy who could be worthy of this winning the Triple Crown. But Joe Burrow was just outstanding this year. It's a shame that all he's going to have to go for it is a Pro Bowl, because I do think he had a better individual season than both Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. But Joe Burrow's my pick. I do think it will go to Saquon, though.
Yeah, I think Joe Burrow is definitely a good, like, at least honorable mention for me. I do think Saquon probably wins the award, and like you mentioned, Jamar Chase as well. Like, I think any of those 3 guys are, like, well deserving of the award. Like, you run for over 2,000 yards, that that's a historic season. Like, there's not many guys that do that. Jamar Chase, Triple Crown winner. There's not many guys that do that. Joe Burrow, like, what did he end up finishing with? It was like 43-8.
Yeah,
it was like that. No, there's not that many people that do that either. So, like, all had nut seasons. I think that
just put the team on his back.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're all, like, insanely good. It was some good year for some good football, honestly.
4,918 yards, 43 pass touchdowns, 9 picks, along with another 200 rush yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. So, I mean,
ridiculous.
If you had a defense, you might win the AFC.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, like, if you're putting up 30 plus a game, and their counterpart, their rivals, the Chiefs, only won 30-point game all year, right?
Yeah,
this past
against the Steelers.
Or in the regular season against the Steelers, and then this last week they put up 32 to beat the Bills. So it's like, I don't know. I'd still give it to Saquon though. I think, like, he also, and if you look, like, he could have had a lot more.
Yeah.
He decided that just let my other guys eat. I've already got plenty.
Hopefully, I don't know, I say hopefully, but I kind of want the Chiefs to win. I was going to say hopefully he can get a ring instead of the record, but I don't even know where I fall in that argument yet.
I do think it's cool, though. His birthday's on Super Bowl. Cooper DeJean's birthday's on the Super Bowl. You got a couple of guys there that if you're able to win the Super Bowl on your birthday, like, talk about one of the best days you could have.
I know.
Ever. So, I mean, I think that would be cool. I think either way it'll be cool. There's storylines on both sides. I mean, a three-peat would be insane because we've never had that before in the NFL. Like, being alive during a time of the three-peat, and Patrick Mahomes, who will give Brady some argument for the GOAT conversation.
I think he's already number 2 if he wins this.
Yeah, like, if he wins the Super Bowl, has a three-peat, is he 1 or 2 MVPs?
He
just
has
have
2.
the one. He has 2.
He has 2.
He has 2 MVPs.
So Lamar
4 Super
is going to
Bowls.
have more MVPs than him, which is nuts.
Yeah, and really, really, really early prediction for next year. I think Mahomes throws for 50 touchdowns next year and wins MVP. I think we see, like, a vintage Mahomes season. Like, not vintage, obviously, he's not that old, but I think we see one of those like
Back to what we saw in Mahomes'
exactly.
second
Like
season.
it's gonna be. I think their offense is gonna go crazy next year with like if they're fully healthy. Like Xavier Worthy in his second year, Rashee Rice coming off another year. Like if Hollywood Brown comes back, that's just straight speed
Healthy
everywhere you go.
Pacheco,
Exactly,
like-
healthy Pacheco. Like and their offensive line solid. Like with Creed Humphrey and stuff. And like, what if they go into the draft and they take one of these tight ends? Like either Loveland or Warren, like to help back up Kelsey, like
Well, and then you still have Noah Gray
yeah,
too.
and you
so,
have no
yeah.
grace. Like you could do a lot of damage with this offense.
No, I agree. That actually might be a pretty big future bet of mine with Mahomes. I was pretty high on Burrow this year, and it would have worked out had he had a defense like you said earlier. Moving on to the defense, this was one of the weirder defensive player of the year. As for a while, TJ was in the running. Despite being a Steeler fan, I don't think TJ is even sniffing it. I know he was a finalist. This year, you're going to get a kick out of this. This year, I would have had no problem with Myles Garrett winning it. Watching Myles play live, I would have easily been okay with that. Patrick Surtain, when it all was said and done, was the betting favorite, and I would say he probably should win it. I think
it's him or Hendrickson, right?
I would say he's my number one, and then I would have Hendrickson and Myles Garrett tied at number two. I know Kirby Joseph and Xavier McKinney have the takeaways, but
you're not going to give it to a safety.
Yeah, and I get it. Interceptions are cool. I don't even think Kirby Joseph's the best safety on his team. I think Brian Branch is better. So interceptions aren't everything. I'm fine with Patrick Surtain. He's going to be the first defensive back since Stephon Gilmore.
Since Gilly Lock, now, I've got another defensive back that I think should be in high consideration for this award.
Let me have it.
Quintanamo Bay. We're talking about a Darrelle Revis-esque graphic that he's putting up against wide receiver ones. Not just wide receiver ones, the best wide receiver ones in the league. Absolutely shutting them down. Putting them in shackles. As a rookie, come on now. Like, this is a season that he's having. Like, if you actually watched, like, Eagles games and, like, watched him play, the other team's wide receiver doesn't do anything. Like, at all. Like, they are completely neutralized. And so, like, I think that is very impressive. And I think Patrick Surtain's, like, he could be the best corner in the league right now, honestly. But I think Quinyon Mitchell, is probably top 5 at least, based off his rookie season. Obviously, like, things can change, but I think, like, what he's doing, and, like, anytime you're compared to Darrelle Revis at corner, like, you know, you've obviously been doing pretty well. And yeah, he's not going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I think he has a chance for Defensive Rookie, but he's not going to win DPOY.
Let's go right to that because he is my Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, mine as well.
Which is amazing just because they also have Cooper DeJean. We're going to talk about our Executive of the Year, which means GM of the Year, Howie Roseman.
Yeah.
Pretty much should be a finalist for that each and every year, getting both DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell.
Yeah. They drafted so good this year.
They draft so good every year. It's ridiculous. I get it. The Rams have a couple of studs from Florida State. Jared Verse, who was dominant in the playoffs. He didn't have quite the sack numbers, but the pressure numbers were amazing during the regular season. I think he was great. Braden Fisk was great. But Quinyon Mitchell, to me, is by far and wide the Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I agree. And in my like little list, like where I put him as DPOY, I gave Defensive Rookie to Jared Verse just to give it to someone else. But with an honorable mention to Quinyon Mitchell.
Me and Josie have talked about this, and I'm just interested. Like, I miss the days of, like, an off-ball linebacker winning these awards. Because, obviously, we just talked about some stud DBs, but it really has become a pass rusher-centric award for Defensive Player and Defensive Rookie. Like, the last Defensive Player of the Year that was an off-ball linebacker, and we don't get a ton of DBs either, so I'm fine with that, but was Luke Kuechly in his second season, so 2013. That's how long it's been. So we're at, 12 years now since there's been an off-ball defensive player. Defensive Rookie at the top of my mind, I think it might have been Luke Kuechly as well.
Probably.
I'm just trying, 2012 and 2013. But during the 2000s, both Urlacher and Ray Lewis had a Defensive Player of the Year. I don't know. I just miss that. And I don't think that... I think the 2010s, we had some dominant middle linebackers.
Did any of the Niners linebackers win a DPOY? Willis or Bowman?
Let's check. I
Let's
don't
check it
think DPOY, but
Maybe rookie when they're in the
yeah. Patrick Willis, I think his rookie was 08. It was 07, and he was Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Rookie.
And then Navarro Bowman, shout out Penn State, linebacker.
I mean, the league's just changed so much. I mean, teams don't really utilize, like a lot of teams will run hybrid, like, and use safeties in the box and stuff. So, like, there's not really too many linebackers that are, like, sought out as, like, you know, cover, off ball, like, you know, go around, like, follow the line of scrimmage type linebackers. You know, I think it's few and far between. Who's is it Nick or Nate Bond for the Eagles?
Zach Bond.
Zach Bond.
I do love
I was
Zach
gonna
Bond.
say he's a finalist for DPOY, I think, as well. And like he just came off an insane playoff game against the Commanders. Like he was everywhere. Like he had one of the key like punch out fumbles. I think he was on Austin Eckler too on that play.
Free agent signings.
Yeah, exactly.
Howie
Roseman once again. I mean, we're already kind of hinting at it, but Howie Roseman's like, he's the guy when it comes to like building a squad.
So Bowman's rookie year is 2010. He is a 4-time first-team All-Pro, but rookie of the year, and this makes sense, was Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah.
So, let's shift over for offensive rookie of the year. So when you look at these awards, they're supposed to be strictly regular season.
We know where you're going with this.
And at the end of the regular season, I was very adamant that Brock Bowers has had a historic season. We don't give tight ends these awards.
No.
Like we've been talking about that for a while. Travis Kelce has had multiple years where he was worthy of an offensive player of the year. He doesn't have any. I think Brock Bowers winning a rookie of the year would have been even more unheard of. However, after the playoffs, and this is where kind of there's a discrepancy, because I still stand firm that if we're looking at strictly regular season, I'm giving Brock Bowers the award. Yeah. But you can't look at what the Commanders did in this postseason, and they're a good team, but Jayden Daniels is legit. You had a take, which is one of my favorite takes of yours all time, that Jayden Daniels, without question, is a top 5 quarterback already. I think that the 5 quarterbacks aren't really up for debate. You can argue the order of them, but I think the 4 in the AFC, Lamar, Allen, Burrow, Mahomes, and then 5 is Daniels. I think the top 4 you can do whatever.
And there's been a lot of motion with that 5 spot, like over these last few years. Like I think Jalen Hurts was at one point at the 5. Like Justin Herbert was one point at the 5. I think Trevor Lawrence like was being thought like could be the 5. Like CJ Stroud after his rookie year. Like now it's Jayden Daniels, and I don't think he's going anywhere. Like I think he is going to be sort of as like the best QB in the NFC. Like hopefully, like for the Commanders, like for their franchise, for the next 10 to 15 years, like being just absolutely good. I think his play style, like I think he'll take more of a turn where like these first however many years will be like he'll be able to run more. But like Jayden Daniels is, and like first up, he's always looking down the field. Like he's not looking to run. I think he'll definitely develop more of like just dropping back instead of like some more of the QB designed runs. Like with his frame and build, like
gotta keep him healthy.
He can't sustain, like he had like bruised ribs already. Like I don't think he can sustain as much running. Like, and that's part of what makes him special. But like he's an amazing thrower of the football too. So I don't think that they need to have him running all that much.
Yeah, special cat. It was really a great year though for rookies. Both of the LSU wide receivers, Malik Neighbors, and then my guy Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah.
Brian Thomas Jr. People are going to be surprised with how good he is next year, just because I don't think a lot of people watched a lot of Jaguars games, so they don't realize how elite he was. He was better than Malik Neighbors this year. Malik Neighbors, though, stud. Bucky Irving, stud. Bo Nix looked amazing. Drake May didn't quite have the numbers this year, but
Bo Nix is on fraud watch, by the way, for those of you paying attention to the scores.
We'll see. I think when you have Sean Payton, you're going to be protected and look pretty good. Drake May looked amazing. I'm nowhere close to giving up on Caleb Williams. No. Penix had flashes at the end of the year. This was a special offensive group, and I think they're going to get better. Lad McConkey, another 1,000-yard receiver. I forget if I said him, but Bucky Irving, Tyron Tracy, up and down. Like
Jalen McMillan coming on late for he came on late for the Bucs, especially after Godwin went down and then Evans had some injury problems. Like he was an absolute beast for the Buccaneers as well.
Well, you saying that just made me think of Jason Light, the Buccaneers general manager, who's done a great job of
No, he's been good.
reloading this team. They went all in, similar to what the Rams did with Tom Brady, and they've been able to recover and stay relevant, stay competitive.
Yeah.
It obviously helps that you got Baker Mayfield in year one at a discount, but just a great job by him. We do have a couple of player awards and some others, but we've been hinting at it a lot. Let's talk about executive of the year. Coming in, I was firm that I was going to say Adam Peters was the GM of the year when you look at what they were able to build. Yes, Jaden Daniels, but the key free agent signings. Austin Eckler was good. On the defensive side of the football,
Did they bring in Zach Ertz this year?
Zach Ertz was brought in this year.
He had a great year, too.
You brought in 2 All-Pro linebackers.
Yeah.
In Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner. Obviously, the Marshawn Lattimore trade at the deadline. It was special, but my favorite GM in the league. If I could learn under anybody in the league, I would just want to be on a fly on the wall for Howie Roseman and his meetings. He's special. When you look at the free agent signings with Saquon, and then Zach Bond, when you look at the draft with DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, I still think Will Shipley could turn into something. It's just special. The way the team's built, if I'm looking for a general manager, I'm trying to poach somebody from the Eagles front office. I think you're going to be on the same page. Adam Peters, though, great. Brett Veach for the Chiefs, great. Brad Holmes for the Lions. Obviously, it fell apart with the defense at the end, but great. But I think Howie Roseman.
Yeah, absolutely Howie Roseman. And I'm glad you talked about learning from Howie Roseman, so that way I can give some love to the Browns and Andrew Berry.
Okay.
Guess where Andrew Berry comes from? Right under Howie Roseman and the Eagles. So if there's any team that's going to turn it around this next year, number 2 overall pick 33, 3 picks in the 3rd round. This is our first round pick since the Deshaun trade, if I remember correctly. I don't think we had a first round pick.
I don't think you guys traded up into any of them. So this will be our first one.
This will be our first one. I think we're going to do something special in this turnaround. Do I think we're going to be a playoff team next year? Probably not. We went from all these high optimistic expectations for the Browns. I feel like we're back to no expectations, which is where I like to be. It's for my happiness, no expectations with a happy surprise is always better than thinking we're going to be good and then we're just trash. So Andrew Berry, be on the lookout. He could be up here in the GM talks in the next couple years if the Browns are able to rebuild and get something going. Or we might just implode and everyone's going to get fired and he might be somewhere else. So
it's all right. Then you'll be able to start from scratch.
No, we start from scratch.
Speaking of starting from scratch, I know there was a little bit of rumblings towards the end of the season that Myles Garrett might want out. Andrew Berry did come out today. I'm sure you're happy about this and said that Myles Garrett will not be traded. So it's good.
Yeah, I know he said on Hard Knocks too that he's talked with some of the organization and he likes the plan that they have in place. I don't know how much that really makes me believe that we're gonna have such a great plan. You can just believe what people say. You have to go out and do it. You have to get the right players. You have to turn things around. I think that we have a really good scheme with Kevin Stefanski. I know we're kind of getting off topic, so I'll just kind of talk about more we have a really good scheme. I think we can turn it around. I'm slowly buying into Shador.
Okay.
I'm not fully bought in to any quarterback at 2, but I'm slowly buying in that he could be a really good fit into our scheme.
Out of these 3 guys, who would you I know you want to trade down, which I am a huge advocate in trading down at all times. But if you had to pick a player at 2, would it be Will Campbell, the tackle from LSU, Travis Hunter, the stud, the main storyline of the draft, or the guy who's been raising really high right now? Daniel Jeremiah has him as his number 1 prospect, Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett.
I feel like Abdul Carter. If we're going non-quarterback at 2, I feel like Abdul Carter or Mason Graham would be the pick. I think our secondary right now is pretty good. You can never have too many people in the secondary, and that's where I feel like we would use Travis Hunter more. I think he obviously can play both. He's only going to play 1. I think his ball skills as a corner are a little better. I think he's going to play receiver in the league though. I think you build that D line the more people you have that are extremely talented around Myles Garrett makes their jobs easier and it makes Myles' job easier. That's where it starts. And then the better your pass rush is, you don't need as good depth in the secondary because they're getting home under 3 seconds. But if we do go quarterback, I'd like to see Shador. unless he's picked number one, obviously. I just think over 70% completion for his career. Jackson State and Colorado, he's made those programs better. Obviously, like, the coaching has to do with that, but, like, he's had pretty much no weapons around him other than Travis Hunter. He's been able to, like, play good. I think he really fits Stefanski's scheme really well as far as, like, the play action and, like, running the ball and then, like, you know, roll out, throw the ball down the field. Like, I think he can definitely fit our scheme really well just based on his play style. He needs some coaching for sure. I think he's a little more, like, needs a year or two. Like, he's not going to come out and light the league on fire. Like, look at Josh Allen. He's not Josh Allen. But look at Josh Allen's first couple of years. Took him a couple years to develop, got good coaching, all of a sudden takes off. And now he's, like, one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
All right, we have one more player award. This one's not going to take long. And like we said, the qualifications are a little weird for some of these. Comeback player of the year, it's not so... They made the change and the distinguishment that you cannot come back from sucking. Okay? Like, that is not a thing. However, this year, guess what? Sam Darnold is there. You also have DeMar Hamlin, which is ridiculous because coming back from not doing anything, if you're using that from last year, Joe Flacco shouldn't have won it. I still have no problem with Flacco winning it. But if you're not going to give it to Flacco, you're going to give it to Hamlin. This year, there's no reason for Hamlin to even be on this list, but he's there. Two of my favorites, J.K. Dobbins and Christian Gonzalez. Yeah. And then the guy who I was glazing earlier, Joe Burrow, who I do think will win it and should win it. Sam Darnold technically shouldn't even be eligible. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like, based on how I view the award, I feel like you have to come back from some sort of an injury, and you have to come back and have a good to great season. You don't have to put up MVP numbers to be comeback player of the year. And then, like, I did honorable mention Sam Darnold because, like, coming back from having to be on the Jets and the Panthers, like, that's a pretty big feat, like, you know.
And I'd be fine with him winning comeback player of the year. I'm more frustrated with if you're gonna, like, make these qualifications by your rules that you created. Sam Darnold should not win.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do think Sam Darnold came back.
It needs to be more defined. Yeah, it needs to be more defined.
But all right, so we do have both Coach of the Year and Assistant Coach of the Year. Sorry, Josie, we're not talking about the Walter Payton Man of the Year because we don't know.
Myles Garrett.
No. All right, maybe we will talk about it if we have to argue that.
Deshaun Watson, he's up there.
I think that the NFL, there are very limited things that I think college does better than the NFL. But I think that the NFL should adapt their award systems for individual position awards. So, like, the best quarterback award, I think it's called the O'Brien in college football. There's the Maxwell, obviously, too. But I think there should be the Manning Award, which goes to the best quarterback. But more importantly, because MVP is basically best quarterback, there should be a running back award. There should be a wide receiver award. There should be a tight end award, an offensive lineman award. Deion Dawkins was talking about that. I think that's very much needed. I think that would be fun. Some people might not like it because it is kind of new and it would kind of benefit the newer players while hurting the older players when comparing resumes. But I think that's interesting. Moving on to Coach of the Year, this is another one where are you defining it as biggest surprise, which is typically like what coach did the most with less, or are you giving it to the best coach in the NFL? Because Bill Belichick, if you're giving it to the best coach in the NFL, should have a lot more hardware. This is one of those years, though, where I think the best coach in the NFL is also one of the biggest surprises. I'm going to give it to Andy Reid.
Oh, okay.
You lose 2 games during the regular season, one of which you didn't care about losing. And then the other one to a very good Buffalo Bills team that you lost on the road. It was close. You were able to overcome adversity, whether it was Rashee Rice, whether it was dealing with all the 3P talk, Taylor Swift, the biggest star in the world, coming to your home games. Just everything that they were able to deal with. It wasn't the Chiefs team that we're used to seeing, but they just found a way to continuously win, and they're in the Super Bowl. And as of right now, you and I both think that they're going to win it. For that reason, I think Andy Reid is the Coach of the Year. The other guys are amazing. We have a couple guys under the surprise category. with Sean Payton and Dan Quinn, what they were able to do with the Broncos and the Commanders with rookie quarterbacks. Kevin O'Connell rejuvenating Sam Darnold's career, and then Dan Campbell, kind of like the Chiefs, just very good team, able to deal with expectations until the very end.
Yeah, I think for me, Andy Reid falls into that Bill Belichick category where he's plagued by, I have the best quarterback. So anytime you have the best at the most important position, it kind of takes away from, like, at least voters' eyes of, like, what your coaching actually is, even though, like, they are both amazing coaches and have tremendous value to where their teams were and are. But, like, Andy Reid, it's going to be hard for Andy Reid to ever get awards because Patrick Mahomes, he solves all your problems, right? So, like, for me, I don't think he'd win. I mean, definitely deserving based on the points you say. I think Kevin O'Connell, just like, oh my God, with what he did with Sam Darnold, I think is like, no one else did that with Sam Darnold. No one else could figure it out. He's got a guy playing as an MVP level. I mean, he was in MVP talks during the season. They had a chance to be the 1 seed. They were the best, maybe the best 14-win team ever to be on the road in the playoffs. That's a heck of a coaching job. Now, you know, obviously they weren't prepared to go on the road and play a playoff game. But overall, like, throughout the regular season, like, I think he did an amazing job, not only, like, with the defense, which Brian Flores, I think, is definitely, we're going to talk about, like, assistant coach of the years. He's definitely a candidate that's up there with that Vikings defense. But I think Kevin O'Connell is definitely who I would pick to win this award. I mean, you talked about some of the other guys. I think Dan Campbell would be maybe the other one, just with, like, all the adversity they faced with injuries. Like, by far and away the most people on IR, and, like, not just, like, starters. Not just, like, special teams guys, but, like, people that make impact. You lose Aiden Hutchinson to a gruesome injury. David Montgomery got hurt near the end of the year. Like, pretty much your entire secondary at one point was hurt. Like, you have people down every which way, and they found a way to win every week. So, like, I don't know. That's pretty impressive coaching job, if you ask me.
No, I don't think that there's a wrong answer. So, assistant coach of the year, I have the finalists up here, and I kind of have a gripe with it.
Who are the finalists?
Joe Brady, which, fine, like, I like Joe Brady. Vic Fangio, who I do think he's one of the best defensive coordinators. Now, this year, I mean, I guess Philly's defense was one of, if not the best.
Yeah.
Flores, who you mentioned, and then both of the Lions guys are deserving to be there. Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. Yeah. I think that this is going to go to Ben Johnson, and it probably should. But there were just other guys
I actually disagree.
Okay.
And the guy I have is not on that list.
What about Cliff Kingsbury?
I think Cliff's one of my honorable mentions. What about Steve Spagnuolo? What about Steve Spagnuolo?
We were just talking about how this wasn't your typical Chiefs team. I don't know. I don't like these finalists as much. Like, and I think
I think Ben Johnson makes sense, but Aaron Glenn, like, yeah, he did a good job, but, like, it's not like their defense was world beaters.
Yeah, Flores should be there. I love Brady and Fangio,
yeah,
but
I think Flores, Fangio definitely deserve. I think Ben Johnson, I think Spags definitely deserves to be there. Like, especially
Spags
like when you look
Kingsbury
at the dial up.
in there.
Like, you look at what he dials up on a week-to-week basis. Like, you want to know one of the reasons why the Chiefs never score 30 points this year? They didn't need to. Their defense was that good. And, like, you look at their D-line. Chris Jones, yeah, is great. A lot of the other guys aren't household names, like Dana, Karlaftis, like, and they're just making plays. He's putting these players in the best position to succeed, and that's what great coaches do, is you set your players up to be great even when they aren't the most talented players. Like, it's not like the Chiefs defense has a ton of Pro Bowlers or all-pro players. Like, you have McDuffie and Chris Jones, I think, are the two household names. Who else do they really have other than, like, they're just all playing really well?
They have a bunch of good guys.
Exactly.
Nobody, like, we're talking about, like, this, and you know how, you know my gripes with the Steelers defense, but look at the big names on the Steelers defense. TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Patrick Queen, Minka Fitzpatrick.
Joey Porter, maybe.
Yeah, in terms of names, like, I don't know. I do think Ben Johnson should win this award, but I would put Spags probably over any of these other guys. I would put Kingsbury at least on here. Yeah, I guess I'm fine because, like, who cares if you're a finalist? Like, as long as the winner is agree. Yeah. But, this was my first time, I guess, reading the finalists because I didn't care to look. But, yeah, I have some gripes with this. I don't love that, but interesting. All right. In addition to that, we also will have the Walter Payton Man of the Year, which we just talked about. And what I actually care about, the Hall of Fame finalists, we aren't going to go into that too deep. I'm sure we're going to have a full episode worth of it following the Super Bowl, but that is something to look forward to this weekend. Don't spoil the Walter Payton Man of the Year award for Josie, because Josie will get mad.
Let's see.
Josie cares about the Walter Payton Man
He
of the
cares
Year
about
award more than anybody.
I don't even know who the nominees are.
Yeah, I don't. Because the Steelers, for instance, they had Hayward as their nominee for the longest time. He wins it last year.
Yeah.
I don't know who it is now. The Steelers had two.
Trey McBride is for the Cardinals. Little rookie action.
What are some other household names or like stars? McBride,
Roquan Smith for the Ravens, Deion Dawkins for the Bills, Denzel Ward is the Browns this year. I didn't even know that. I just assume it's Miles every year. Jared Goff for the Lions, Kelsey for the Chiefs, Max Crosby for the Raiders. Here's a nice one. Cameron Dicker, the kicker for the Chargers, is the Walter Payton Man of the Year. That's actually who I want to win now after looking at that. I want a kicker to win the award. CJ Ham, Vikings fullback. It's another little action there.
Who's the Steelers?
Steelers is Larry Ogunjobi, former Brown. Let's go.
I don't really want him to win.
Mike Evans for Tampa, I think, gotta love
cool.
Mike Evans. Bobby Wagner for the Commanders. I think Cam Jordan for the Saints. Brandon Graham for the Eagles, but I think he's been that for like 10 years now. So.
I could see him winning it because as kind of like a final hurrah. He's probably done playing. He's been out for a while now. I don't know. One point that Josie does have about the Walter Payton Man of the Year, which I think he's right, and I always make fun of it because they say it's the most prestigious award in the NFL. It's not.
No.
Like, I get it. It's important, and I'm glad they do it. But the MVP is the most prestigious.
Yeah, for sure.
But I do think that it does matter when you're looking at someone's legacy. I do think, like Cam Hayward, for instance, a guy who doesn't necessarily have the sack numbers. He has a lot of accolades, but he's going to be a Hall of Fame discussion, and I think that's going to be able to push him in. Anquan Bolden and Eli Manning, they're each kind of like those fringe Hall of Famers, and I do think it helps. If Travis Kelce wins the award, people are going to be up in arms. People are going to be so upset. The Kelces are just better at life than us.
Do you know what he's like foundation or what he's doing for the? I have no idea.
Who else did you say there that I thought was in? Mike Evans was another
Evans.
interesting one. I don't know. I don't think you can even bet on it. Obviously, it's too late now, but I kind of I can feel the Brandon Graham narrative.
Do they do finalists for this award, or is it just all 32 teams send in a nominee and then someone wins?
Well, I'm pretty sure all 32 nominees are invited to the ceremony.
Oh, okay.
But I thought in past years that they did finalists, but I guess last year I didn't think they announced it because I was sort of surprised about Hayward. I'm not sure, but...
Did he win it last year?
Hayward did win it last year, because this was the first time that I've noticed that a team had two winners on their team, both Russell Wilson and Hayward.
Yeah, so. I only really pay attention to whoever wins that award if, like, they give them a card on Madden. Like, they'll do awards, like, in the Maddens. I don't think they always do the Walter Payton Man of the Year, but, like, if they do... Then I see it, and I'm like, oh, this person won that award this year.
I want there to be a 99 overall CJ Ham card.
Ooh, CJ Ham, Cameron Dicker, I think would be a cool, fun mutt card. Yeah.
All right, good episode. We kind of killed that. Yeah, tag team.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that was a good one.
That was a good one. Enjoy the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Enjoy the Pro Bowl.
Yeah. Enjoy the Pro Bowl. Pro Bowl games are fun. Dodgeball's cool. You get to watch people do cool stuff. Hopefully no one gets hurt, because, that would suck.
Are you watching the Pro Bowl?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I have
the way you were talking, I was like, wait, is he actually going to watch it?
I have way better things to do than the Pro Bowl. Not really, but...
Anything's better.
Yeah, anything's better than the Pro Bowl. Yeah, so...
It used to be kind of cool. I remember being like super little. Like I remember Brandon Marshall when he was with the Dolphins had a nuts game.
Yeah, it's cool. I think they do like the Mannings. I think that's a cool, fun thing where they go against each other. I think now that it's flag football makes it a little more different. So it's like, it's different. So it might be fun to watch. I haven't watched it since it's been flag football, but it's cool at least.
I think they needed to go back to the AFC NFC template, but I do think it was kind of fun, like when they did like a draft out of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I want them to just draft play. Like I think it'd be cool if like the Mannings drafted players.
Yeah.
Like all the people that are
So
Pro
get rid
Bowlers.
of the AFC, NFC.
Yeah,
So
and you just have you have Pro Bowlers like from each conference, I think, or not each conference, but I would say Pro Bowlers by position, regardless.
But
and
not
then
by conference,
yeah, not by conference,
Yeah.
and then draft from there. I also think it's really stupid the fill-in Pro Bowl people. What are we doing? Like this? So being a Pro Bowler pretty much means nothing in today's NFL.
at certain positions, I
Like-
would say quarterback. It doesn't mean as
Like
much.
Tyler Huntley's a Pro Bowler. He played like 4 games that season.
Russell Wilson,
Mac
this
Jones,
year.
Russell Wilson this year. Like, there's too many
Hey,
guys.
put some
that are-
respect on. Mac Jones had a good year that year.
Yeah, not better. Not Pro Bowl worthy.
Yeah,
Not top 3 in the AFC.
top
like-
5 though. His Pro Bowl is a lot more legit than Russell Wilson's or Tyler Huntley's.
Pretty much.
Tyler
barring-
Huntley's is one of the worst that I've
Yeah.
ever seen. He had
Bar-
more interceptions than touchdowns.
Barring injury, it should always be Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, and Burrow, and one of them doesn't make it. If those are your 3 Pro Bowls for the AFC.
But then one of them's going to make the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So technically,
And
all
so
4 of them
all 4 of them
always
would
make it.
pretty much make it, right?
What
That's
about-
literally
what about
how it
your-
should be
what about
every
your
single year.
boy?
I mean,
What
I
about
think-
your boy, Justin Fields?
if he goes to the NFC, not the AFC. I just think that they need to either enforce going to the Pro Bowl or like just have a vacant spot. We just won't have as many people if people opt out because like invite people to fill in a spot, but don't actually give them the Pro Bowl accolade. Because like that tarnishes the accolade when you're giving like all these people and the other people who opt out also Pro Bowlers.
Or-
So you just have a ton of Pro Bowlers for no reason.
What if they did, and this is the way I think they used to do it, like old days, like way before our time. They used to do the Pro Bowl after the Super Bowl, so there weren't even like Super Bowl replacements. I get it. The NFL wants this window, although
No, I think that'd be good.
like
Go back
I
to
don't
that.
know, like because the QB competition, I know they do it like a newer version of it now with like the moving targets and everything, but like I still get a kick out of like Peyton Manning and Randall Cunningham, Mark Brunell,
Yeah.
all those guys in like the early 2000s, late 90s, just like throwing it as hard as they can, like doing the off step. Like I don't know, I have more fun watching like old highlights of those.
Yeah.
So maybe they do it after the Super Bowl. I don't know. Here's another grievance while we're at it. Start airing the NFL Honors Show live.
Yeah, I
I
mean
don't-
that'd be
I don't
cool.
know.
I don't like getting the alerts.
They play it
Like-
on ESPN or ABC like an hour after it happened. So like
like I get
you
the
have to
alerts
be
of
a
who
real
wins.
loser to be watching it after you see on Twitter who won everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Like I'm not gonna watch it if I already know who's winning.
Yeah,
everything.
like that deserves a primetime slot.
Yeah.
Like have that be like the Sunday primetime slot on whatever network, whether it's NFL Network, ESPN. Have that be.
Do they
on
have someone
iTunes.
like host that? Like
Yeah, they do. I don't know who's doing it this year. They had the guy from Key and Peele do it one time.
Oh, okay.
Kevin Hart did it
Yeah.
one time. But like that's the thing. It's not even aired live.
yeah,
Like I don't.
I don't know.
Anything else you want to get off your chest?
Nah, I don't think so.
All right. Well, good episode.
Yeah, good
We
episode.
did good.
Cancun on 3,
1,
2,
2,
3.
3. Cancun.
Cancun.